if you are a landlord and a developer who has prioritized and is making real movement towards sustainable buildings that align with best in class occupiers, it is a differentiator today on how you can attract best in class companies to come and occupy, especially in the office sector too.
Welcome back to another episode of Renewable Rides. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by one of our partners who has quickly become a good friend, Lee Jackson. Lee, along with his partner, Jesse Michael, founded the Digital Solutions Advisory practice within JLL. Within their practice, they connect large commercial real estate asset owners with innovative solutions to drive value across large real estate portfolios. Lee has an incredible background, from leading restaurant operations for one of the largest restaurant groups in Canada to developing retail playbooks for a very large property owner. In today's episode, we'll cover how commercial real estate asset owners operate, the role of technology in boosting their net operating income, and how the conversation around energy has shifted in the last few years. Lee is an expert connector, translator, evangelist, and all-around great human. Let's get into it. All right, Lee, super excited to have you on. It's been a long time coming. And for our guests, we always like to start off with learning a little bit more about yourself. So what are you passionate about?
I've got a lot of passions, Dan, but I think when it comes to commercial real estate and industry, big passion for me is sort of identifying innovative solutions out in the marketplace that have real long-term sustainable application to the industry with measurable impact, that's sort of hitting operational and financial performance for the assets, finding that solution, that diamond in the rough, that innovative thing that's helping to drive business forward in a fairly traditional industry. That's sort of the bread and butter of what I do and where I find a lot of passion. I love talking innovation and identifying solutions and seeing the results that come of that. Big test and learn fan and love seeing the fruits of that.
Great. Well, I've certainly enjoyed learning from you over the past many months. I want to learn a little bit more about your background. Like, how did you get to where you're at? How did you get into JLL? Maybe take us back. Like, where'd you grow up? What got you passionate about real estate?
Sure. It's a very non-linear journey. And if I were to take you way back to the start, it's a few failed starts in business school, police foundations, studying legal and doing an undergraduate degree in law and getting to a point of it's time to get into the paralegal and official law school side, and choosing to pivot on something I was enjoying at the time, which was working in the food and beverage business. And that's where my career journey starts formally. Worked as an operator actually for about a decade of a large, unique restaurant concept group that had about 27 restaurants. I grew up in the Toronto area, and we were executing anything from like a market canteen style restaurant through to like a premium fine dining establishment. And that comes with a lot of unique operational challenges. We were located in a lot of unique formats. We were in malls, we were in office lobbies, we were in standalone units. And it was the driver that brought me into commercial real estate. About a decade into that career, I received a phone call from a major pension fund backed real estate owner called Oxford Properties, who was looking to play defense a little bit and get ahead of what they felt was a transition in retail, where shopping centers were going to need to evolve from, hard good traditional retailers, as I guess we know them today, into more entertainment and destination centers, where traditionally the mix of a shopping center would be like 2 or 3% food and beverage restaurants. Today, you go to your local center and it's anywhere from maybe 10 to 25, 30% that is included in that mix today. And it's a big pivot that they were ahead of. So I joined that group to lead a food, beverage, and entertainment leasing division for their portfolio. And that was my foot in the door in commercial real estate. And it was quite an amazing transition to go from operator to representing a landlord and speaking with operators every day to bring their business to the Oxford portfolio at the time. After 3 years of sort of successfully doing that and helping them transition that portfolio, I connected with JLL, who was looking for somebody to lead their business development and operations functions in the Canadian marketplace. And they had recently acquired a tenant representation and agency business called Northwest Atlantic. And they were looking for somebody who had a skill set, which was a background of commercial real estate and operations. And it made a lot of sense for me to sort of step outside of just being food and beverage focused, join a Fortune 200 commercial brokerage, and get the opportunity to support the group in all of those components. So my role was at the time to support a team of about 80, support them with their technology decision making for the enhancement and advancement of their brokers and their business, support the marketing team, the analytics teams, the GIS teams, and be sort of that point of contact for JLL in Canada globally. If there was anything that was inbound, if an international retailer was looking to enter the market, or we had a client who was looking to expand outside of the market, be that point of contact to connect with the appropriate person in whatever region that was. So it gave me a really great global perspective on commercial real estate. And there's a lot of dynamics, but retail has been my start in the space. And I will say one thing about retail is it's really the one true vertical in commercial real estate. There are lots of sectors, but we don't have industrial warehouses without a saleable asset, which is typically consumed at the retail level. We don't have offices because there's no services if we don't have commerce happening at the retail level. We don't have hospitality and hotels and many of the other categories that exist today, sort of without that foundational component of commerce, which has always happened in a retail center and in retail endpoints. So definitely passionate about that sector in particular. And today I run a practice, which you know well, Dan, through our work together, which is a digital solution advisory practice. And that's another nonlinear sort of evolution. And the story of that is one that impacted us all. There was a small global pandemic that disrupted everybody in March and April of 2020. And it became clear very, very quickly, especially in the Canadian marketplace, that there was no end in sight as far as the disruption went. And clients of ours in the marketplace needed a different type of help. They were looking for solutions to their business challenges, and technology was one of the things that was really helping. So I took it upon myself to make a full effort to understand what the challenges were. For some, it was their shopping centers were closed for 500 days in the Canadian marketplace. For some, it was about communicating with tenants. For others, it was about optimizing those operations while they were really being underutilized. So facilities management tools were important. Communication tools were really important. And through sort of that discovery process, it became clear that the vendor community needed help as well. The solution providers typically had great ideas, but they needed support sort of navigating what was a new vertical for them often. And I think there's a very unique complexity to portfolio ownership because they're in different geographies, they have different asset types, they have different cultures and operational approaches. And having a resource to help them navigate, who's who in each organization, what are sort of the key things that they care about, what are the challenges that they're looking to solve. It was very helpful to the other side of the equation, which was the vendors that we were identifying. So we developed a business that was really centered around sitting in the middle of that and trying to identify great technology solutions that add value to the commercial real estate sector, and working with commercial real estate owners to understand what are the challenges in your business today, and being sort of that middle person who is out there paying attention full time, because everyone is resource strapped. Everybody is looking to, find solutions, but when you're doing it off the side of your desk, it's nice to have a resource like us to kind of ping and know we're paying attention to the sector full time. So fast forward to 2025, we're now 4.5 years in. We formally founded the line Digital Solution Advisory in April 2022 with my business partner, Jesse Michael. And here we sit today. So that's the path to becoming a technology advisor, from restaurants through to leasing through to business ops and now technology.
We'll have to swap some stories from the restaurant days. I didn't know that we shared that from our backgrounds. No, and I will say, like, I very much deeply appreciate yours and Jesse and Grace's partnership in all of this, and in many ways, what you described there is it's almost your role as a more definitely a connector, but almost a translator as well, and helping to your point, new innovative technologies understand how the real estate asset owners think, but also how asset owners, when they identify challenges, problems, needs to you, like how they should be maybe not looking at their traditional approaches and how technology might be able to help meet them. So it's a translator a bit on both sides, it sounds like.
Yeah, a little bit of an evangelist, I would say, as well, because adoption has traditionally been pretty weak in the sector. I think a lot of people have tried things and maybe gotten burned because they didn't do diligence appropriately. And I think that's an outcome of, not doing a formal procurement process, or at least not engaging with the right experts in the sector. But yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good segue into digging in a bit more on commercial real estate sector and technology around it. So maybe for our listeners, can you help us understand how commercial real estate asset owners, both private and publicly traded asset owners, really kind of think about their business? How do they think about growth? What are some of the important metrics to them as they're thinking about building out that business, whether they are long-term holders or they build and flip portions of their portfolio? Like, help us get in the mind of these asset owners.
Sure, I'll do my best because there's lots of different approaches and everybody's trying to build a better mousetrap, if you will. I think the primary metric for everyone at the end of the day is NOI and value creation. And there's a couple of different types of owners. There are people who are merchants and they purchase to rapidly apply a thesis around value creation, whether that's taking a low occupancy space, filling it up with tenants very, very quickly and moving along to the next thing. Or that's a longer term outlook where perhaps you're betting on, the growth of a market per se. Perhaps there's large migration that's taking place and employment is going to be going up. And there are certainly value creation opportunities with the mix that exists in a tenant. But you're fully vertical, you're operating well with respect to how you're managing that site. So you're kind of carrying things through both, the assessment phase. What your plan is going into it. What your capital requirements are going to be to make the improvements to keep that property humming. And you're going to really realize that over a period of time. At the end of the day, the formats kind of fall into the life cycle of those assets, though. So early on in year one, you're really in the execution phase. And as you progress towards either year 5 or year 10 in most cycles, you're having to settle into what you've been able to deliver against that property until you get to the end of that life cycle. So, end of year 5, you're making a decision of whether you're going to recapitalize and hold this property because there's still opportunity there, or you're looking to transition out and focus where the investment thesis sits today. So I know that's very broad, and we can certainly zoom in onto some of the unique components of it. But I'll pause there and let you keep going with the questioning.
No, I think that's good. Maybe we can spend a minute and touch on some of the nuances or differences between private and public, like REITs. I learned recently from one of the companies that we're working with that is a publicly traded REIT that I believe it was 90% or more of their profits need to be distributed to shareholders in the form of dividends in order for them to remain a tax exempt status, if you will, if I'm saying that correctly. And so, what are some of the other nuances that live within the both the public markets and then maybe private is a bit more different because it's probably kind of you know owner specific, but maybe you can comment on some of that.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think the public REITs are in a unique position, and the funds from operation, the FFO, is a big driver of those businesses. And I think that's what makes them some of the best operators in the marketplace. They're very disciplined in how they are running those portfolios from a management perspective. And um, I think that's a great thing. It's allowed the REIT structure, specifically in North America, to grow to and amass portfolios of 300 plus assets, which is astounding when you think about it. It creates a unique complexity because the playbook uh, has to continue to evolve, but you're playing on so many different fields or regions or geographies that some struggle and some thrive in creating a structure that allows them to be opportunistic in a market, and take advantage of what's offered in those markets. But sometimes it can be paralyzing because you're thinking about it at just like a huge portfolio level and kind of applying a very focused, singular minded playbook. With respect to the private markets, um, there's a lot more nimbleness that's available. Those groups can focus on debt and deploying capital for long-term visions. They can assemble and think about large master plan communities and development projects. um, Ultimately, the driver of the majority of these businesses is 95+% is coming from rental income. So lease spread is absolutely one of the key dynamics for every single person in this world. And the debt service coverage ratio is really important too, because you are borrowing capital to capitalize these acquisitions, and then you are servicing that debt over that projected life cycle of the hold. And that's a key component, and it's what's either forced some transactions, and it's also what's allowed people to continue to sort of borrow against these properties over time, depending on what that is, to opportunistically grow their portfolios. So it's complicated, and there's lots of unique dynamics, and there's lots of risk affiliated with what you choose to do. But fundamentally, it's really about having great management of these assets in place so that you're maintaining the properties and not having major leakage. You're keeping them leased up. And those are sort of the key components.
Yeah. Well, so within that, I don't know how far we'd have to zoom back, but like way back, if you will, like commercial real estate was this, and forgive me for the oversimplification, but it's like you've got your you've got your box and you lease out the inside of that box, whether it's retail, office, distribution center, you name it, and that's the primary, to your point, revenue driver is the leasing revenue that's coming from that. Um, how has that evolved? I've found it fascinating getting introduced to folks that are they have alternative revenue in their title, and so that's I mean
Sure.
they're looking for revenue opportunities, which is going to drive up net operating income that is not tenant leasing. What are some of those pathways that you've seen start to bubble up and evolve over the last couple of years? And then a build on of that is like what have asset owners had to do in order to attract great tenants, retain great tenants, elevate the value of the leases that they have with their tenants to meet these overall objectives?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in there, Dan. So I mean, I'll start with your opening comment. Like, the traditional thought is you set it, you lease it, and you forget it, right? For the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever the term is that's in place. The reality is that there are a lot of variable expenses. There are regulations that are impacting the markets. Debt has, changed over the last 5 years, 15 years, and 25 years quite meaningfully. So debt periods and borrow rates don't always line up with the hold period that you initially set. So when you do have to go back and recapitalize and restructure the debt on these assets, that can significantly impact the NOI on the projects. And when you pair that with rising costs, energy costs is a big one, which when you're looking at insurance increases because of lots of different dynamics. But I think climate resilience has driven a lot of that forward, especially in certain markets. If you've set a lease rate for the next 10 years with a tenant, that is really demarginalizing the business. So becoming a better operator has become a huge focus for many of these groups. When you pair in rising construction costs in today's marketplace, we're seeing less construction starts than we've seen in many years. I think the inventory growth and new construction starts, development permits, there's less out in the marketplace being delivered. So it's stabilizing the capital markets because you can't just go and buy land and build because it's a little bit too expensive. You can purchase and grow through acquisition, but you're purchasing prepared product and you're having to apply an operational playbook in addition to leasing. To go to your question around like how do you grow that side of the business, there's a lot of theories out there, but typically, I think the playbook is really focusing in on what the ecosystem and the essence and the vision is for a particular asset. So if you're a grocery anchored center, great. Who is your anchor grocer? Making sure that the merchandising around that sort of fits, and data has been huge. How much traffic is being driven? What's the market size? What are the sales that can be driven from this store? And being able to tell and sell that story and reinforce it with the things that go around that. If you need to market the asset, if you need to apply for the right permits to get the appropriate access to ensure you're funneling more people into a project. These are all key components to the attractiveness to key tenants, and co-tenancy is a big thing. If you can attract best-in-class tenants that are traffic drivers, that are resilient as far as some of the disruptions that have been in the marketplace, grocery has proven to be probably the strongest in that sector. People like to pick out their groceries. It's a daily need. We eat multiple times a day.
Yeah.
You need it to survive, whether you're going to work, whether you're working from home, or, whether you're spending the weekend with the family. That's something that exists no matter what. So that's been a really good foundational tenant. The other side is placemaking and driving traffic and trial. If you can be the place that people want to live, work, and play, well, then you've got the most important thing that retailers need, especially those that are in the aspirational categories. They are the people, right? If people are spending their time and dwelling, and especially for that pivot and that movement towards, destinations, so restaurants, et cetera, they need the people. They need the constant traffic to be in place. So those are some of the dynamics that we see out in the marketplace today, for sure, taking place.
Yeah, certainly. Well, let's shift into talking specifically about technology. I mean, that's your whole practice is digital solutions. So what are you seeing, and how are these, again, forgive me, but like kind of older school operators and asset owners that have been in the space, how are they adopting technology? What's piquing their interest? What are some of the trends that you're seeing?
So it comes in different formats, and I think some are doing a better job than others. But I'll zoom in on a couple of key things that we're seeing take place. I think the pandemic was a huge driver for this. Retailers are using this, occupiers are using this, whether it's office, industrial, retail, it doesn't matter. But data analytics and business intelligence has really just boomed, whether it's mobility data that retailers and owners can use to understand exactly what is the trend line as far as what the traffic is that's coming into a particular center, what stores are being preferred, where they're cross shopping and going next, what the sort of customer journey is. Those are all really important components from a retailer perspective and an occupier perspective. What are the most optimal places for me to put my store? So predictive analytics, looking at cannibalization. There is data upon data upon data and providers out there in the marketplace that are really driving that component. And then on the business intelligence side, you already have a surplus of data from your property management solutions, from your existing core as an owner. But how do you tell that story in a unique way? So we're seeing business intelligence, dashboards come in and they're feeding just data lakes of information to kind of pull out these insights, which are giving them insight into where are the opportunities from a mix. So that co-tenancy, who can they put in place? Where are the leakages, inside of the business operationally, where they're overpaying or they're underinvesting in components and parts of the project. And you get a lot of that from your property management software, which is well distributed. Another place, and I think ESG reporting has driven a lot of this, is smart building technologies. A lot of the data inputs that are required through the SEC and GRESB reporting structures for portfolio companies were very manual for groups to go out and gather at each individual. And if you think of a portfolio, REITs are a great example of this, with 300, 400, 500 assets. It's one ESG report for that REIT. Those inputs, though, are each individually reported. So you've got to go out and collect the utility data from each of the sites. So smart building technologies and putting in the right checks and balances around monitoring and real time understanding for the devices that you require for energy management has been a big boom. I think building automation systems for HVAC, lighting, and security is sort of the next tier. Like once you can monitor it and understand it, then you can start to put in adoption and solutions. That's sort of the next tier and the next level of sophistication in the space is, now that we know that no one's in the building on weekends, we can turn the lights off. We can turn or wind down the HVAC systems, and we can make really meaningful contributions to our bottom line on energy. And we can make really meaningful contributions to our goals with respect to, net neutral carbon initiatives, things of that nature. So those are a couple of key ones, Dan, and certainly if you want to zoom in on any of those, we can do that.
No, I think that's a great overview, and I would like to start digging in on some of the energy stuff. You've hit on it a couple times here, and how have you so smart building technologies and building optimization, I think are critical ones. You mentioned ESG and the reporting. The REITs have these requirements to report these, so it's not necessarily something that is always by choice. But I'd also say that the companies that are out there from a sustainability perspective making these bold commitments are typically consumer-facing companies, and retail is obviously a consumer-facing environment. So how has the conversation around energy, whether it be costs, sustainability, or resilience, because I think, again, when we think about grocery, from a resilience perspective, that's particularly interesting in places that maybe have outages. There's some great examples from some of the winter storms that hit Texas back in 2021 and 2022 of grocery stores becoming this community hub where people could come and get water, charge their phones. So it's kind of all three, the cost, sustainability, and resilience side of things. But how have you seen the conversation among real estate asset owners regarding energy evolve over the last couple of years?
It's evolved pretty significantly. I mean, I think it's driven by a combination of regulatory pressures, and that has been a big driver to pay attention for sure. environmental concerns, genuine concerns that exist in the marketplace, economic factors, because the core of these businesses is about generating revenue, and they're sustainable and they grow because of that. And then you mentioned the retailer. I mean, there's other stakeholders in this. There's the community and there's the occupier. So when you talk about, I didn't say this when you asked the question, but when you talk about attracting, the best types of tenants, this is starting to matter to some of the most important companies in the marketplace. And if you are a landlord and a developer who has prioritized and is making real movement towards sustainable buildings that align with best in class occupiers, it is a differentiator today on how you can attract best in class companies to come and occupy, especially in the office sector too, right? I mean, those are massive, massive projects. You're looking at full building lease ups at times, and banks, institutional banks, they want to be sort of at the forefront of that. So that's been a sector for sure. I think where we've seen major shifts is it the reporting side has been so overwhelming for the last decade, just on getting your ducks in a row to do the reporting, that working, you know, in the business and not on the business has sort of been an output. And we're seeing a shift to like, okay, we're finally getting our arms around what our consumption is, what our reporting season is, and how we're going to do this. And that's all subject to change. But because of the technology that's been applied, the ability to understand those inputs, no matter how the required way of reporting is starting to lessen the demand on the team. And there's the ability to start looking at where can we make fundamental improvements to actually hit these goals. And we're seeing that happen, and net zero commitments are driving it, but the business of that is really the key driver. So the places that we're seeing is in renewable energy for sure. Reducing the amount that's being spent on energy, whether that is through renewable energy programs or optimization, and leveraging those smart building solutions to look at things like lighting systems and HVAC systems, looking at the building infrastructure to reduce leakage, especially in cooler and warmer climates where you're either blowing a lot of heat or blowing a lot of cooling through the space. Those are some of the key things that I'd say we're seeing, and we can dive into some more nuanced stuff. But
Yeah. Well, so I'll ask the question because going back to the very beginning of the conversation where you were talking about kind of your role within this digital solutions advisory, what because you're scanning the market for new innovative technologies, what in particular attracted you to what we're doing at VECKTA based on what you were hearing from the asset owners in the market?
yeah, great question. It was very much driven by what we were hearing from the market, because I'm by no means a sustainability or energy expert. I'm somebody who's built trust with a lot of commercial owners, and the signals that they were providing were, hey, like, we're looking to optimize our portfolio from an energy consumption basis. We're what have you seen out in the marketplace? And I met Gareth at Blueprint in 2024. And when he shared with me what you are all doing at VECKTA, I got it immediately. And what excited me, firstly, everybody within the VECKTA team, the four co-founders, have been an absolute joy to work with. You guys have such a unique blend of backgrounds and experience, energy consulting, operations, procurement, and technology, that that is very exciting. I think when we're assessing technology companies, there's a lot of great ideas out there. But it really still goes back to like what the foundation is. So kudos to the VECKTA team. Like, as much as the VECKTA platform is great, which is second, it's a great product. The people have to drive that forward. And, you guys are great relationship builders. You understand your sector, I think best in class from what I've been exposed to. And you've got a great technology team who's kind of working on the client's needs, not their vision per se. There's always the ability to pivot there, but the product is been built to sort of be adaptable from that perspective and continue to evolve with like a rapidly changing renewable energy marketplace and regulatory marketplace and subsidy marketplace. I can't imagine, being an ESG leader at any shop and having to self monitor all of that information in real time. Like, we you can engage third parties, but what they're doing is they're giving you a report that's as good as the day you get it. Where I think the product with VECKTA is, in as quickly as you can adapt, you're keeping that information relevant and you're constantly re-reporting, which is very exciting. So from a data and analytics perspective, the ability to identify opportunities while continuing to assess everything that's taking place out in the market, whether that's a utility spike, it's a change in a subsidy, it's a major change in an administration's
Yep.
foundational way that they view sustainability. You are not falling behind and disposing of all the work that's been done. And then fourth, I think it's something that's producing positive outcomes for its clients. When people are able to understand where the opportunities are faster, they're able to act faster. And whether it's helping clients to deploy systems which lead to long-term savings and future revenue, or it's converting assets into energy independent sites, or it's unlocking value through procurement of rooftop leases, which is more of a merchant approach. But it meets the market where sort of the traditional component of it is, but it's also hitting a sustainability goal. VECKTA is kind of driving positive results in all those places. It's making life easier for groups. So that's really the core of what we want from a partner. It's why, to answer your question, we have had the pleasure of working with you guys and continue to be big fans of what VECKTA has built and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your partnership and to my comment before of being a translator, helping understand the nuances of the market and how folks are thinking and how macro market changes are impacting the way decisions are getting made, and we're seeing that play out in real time. I mean, it's been a pretty wild last 3-4 months, and I think we'll
Totally
see that. So, well, let's shift into our power surge round.
Yeah.
Let's jump right into the first one. I always love this question, as our listeners know. If you could be any one energy technology, what would it be and why?
Yeah, you sent this question ahead of time, so I gave it a lot of thought. I would be an on-site battery storage unit, and I'll tell you why, whether you're going to ask or not.
No,
I
tell me.
think whether I'm storing self-generated power for use and distribution at a later time, or I'm helping the owner of my asset to buy energy during off-peak price times, I'm always helping to drive down the costs of energy being consumed at my assets. And in the event of a major disruption to our utilities, whether that's a flood, a fire, earthquake, whatever it may be, I'm here to help ensure that during the most critical time of that disruption, that the visitors, the occupiers, and the stakeholders in the community of my asset still have a source of power in that most critical time. So I would be an on-site battery storage unit.
Love it.
Dan.
Love it.
Yeah.
Interesting that you say earthquake there. You just gave me the chills because we just had a decent sized earthquake here in Southern California on Monday.
You did.
Yeah, I'd say, having lived in California my whole life, that was like top three shakes for me. So you're right there, but I agree with you. Like, I think on-site battery's a great one. Well, so for our listeners, like, I'm curious where you get your information. Like, what are some recommended sources, books, podcasts, newsletters, journals? Like, and it doesn't need to be energy specific, but like, where are great resources within the commercial real estate space?
Yeah, I'll give 3 great podcasts that are always in my ears. We have one internally at JLL which is with James Cook, and it's called the Where We Buy podcast. It's super dynamic. James is a great moderator and interviewer, and his natural curiosity takes him down a lot of rabbit holes, but it's fun to listen. He gets access to some really great concepts and clients. And I love hearing that perspective. It's often, CEO of major portfolio groups, or it's a unique and innovative provider who he's kind of zooming in on the backstory, not dissimilar to the chat we're having, but really great podcast. Spencer Levy from a competitive brokerage has the CRE podcast, which I would certainly encourage listening to. They do some really great regional stuff where they'll do an overview on Texas, an overview on New York, an overview on Atlanta, and do some zoom ins and also have some really, really phenomenal guests. Retail Retold is a good one as well. A guy named Chris Ressa runs that. He's the COO of DLC, and he always has really interesting, dynamic guests from the commercial real estate retail industry. They're a grocery anchored focus group, so it's specific to the sector, but there's lots of unique considerations that touch a lot of the questioning that you ran me through today. So those are three that I would certainly suggest putting in your ears and sort of take a look through previous episodes and find stuff that's relevant to you, but there's something for everybody there, no matter the sector.
Love it. Yeah, I'll be checking those out. All right, let's close out with one that's kind of looking at the future. So whether it's personally or professionally, how would you finish this sentence? In my life, I will have been successful when.
Well, I did this based around global energy future because you prompted me on that.
I did prompt you on that. Yeah. So in the context of the global energy future, in my life, I will have been successful when.
Yeah, I will have been successful when we see commercial properties at scale adopting and deploying a variety of self-developed energy systems, which will power a meaningful portion of the assets. It doesn't necessarily have to be energy independence for them all, but it should be focused around, reducing the reliance on traditional, driving down costs and raising efficiency and really, climate impact. As an evangelist for this movement, particularly with VECKTA and, trying to meet what the problem statement is, the only gap right now is adoption and commitment to the space. And these are complicated things that VECKTA is helping to solve. So as we see that continue to grow, and I know you see it happening, and it's a fast follow industry. So I think VECKTA is going to play a really important role of that. I will find great comfort in seeing those efforts kind of come to fruition, and I will feel very fulfilled and successful when we get there. And I don't think it's that far away, Dan. I think it's probably 2 to 5 years. We're going to see some pretty major change in that space. I think right now we're in the analysis and assessment and procurement phase, and the next 6 to 18 months, there's going to be a lot of execution, and the results are going to follow. And then it's going to be this waterfall of everybody saying, we should do that. It's going to be part of the modern day operating platform when people are looking at value creation in purchasing assets or refinancing and optimizing assets they already own. Making that transition is going to be a critical part of that long term.
I completely agree. I am curious, outside of energy related, how would you finish the statement on a personal level? In my life, I will have been successful when.
I didn't pre-think that, but I mean, as a parent with 3 young kids, as long as they grow up happy and reasonably contributing citizens of society, I will feel very successful from that perspective. And I think if I have the opportunity to continue to work with people that I enjoy working with and do what I love, then I will feel successful for all of my life. So having the freedom of choice and being able to follow your passion is probably the other component of that.
I agree. And it's something I've enjoyed sharing with you. And as parent of some young kids, I've been enjoying that evolution of like, man, what is my really like my number one job? My number one job is to raise like some good humans, right? Like
Yes,
let's raise some good
100%.
humans.
And hopefully they will, you know, where the future generations are going to be employed and work and, you know, spend their time. I mean, I see it already where there's a lot of passion in my kids for doing what's right for the world. So I hope that the business of energy and renewables is something that they think about long term, because it's kind of double fulfilling.
I agree. Lee, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for dedicating your time and your partner Jesse for dedicating his time to connecting technology with these commercial real estate asset owners. It's a huge pleasure to work in the industry and work with you guys. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And yeah, looking forward to more to come.
Thanks, Dan. It's been our pleasure as well.
Take care, Lee.
Take care.
We receive a lot of questions from business leaders around the world wanting to learn more about the energy transition, what is possible, and where to start. So to help you stay informed and up to date on best practices, opportunities, risks, and success stories, we created an industry newsfeed at VECKTA.com/news with all our podcasts, blogs, and newsletter. Check it out and connect with Dan, myself, and the VECKTA team to learn more. Cheers and have a good one.